10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, folks. Hello, and everybody. I'm happy to be here with you again. This is your host, Michael Voss. I am the Dragon of the Southern Tier here on No Soundbites Allowed. I'm glad to be back with you. And of course, I am here on no less than the Exceptional Conservative Network. And I'm happy to be here with you guys. I know it's been a little while. We started working, got to be able to pay the bills, keep the lights on, and keep the show going. And so there was you haven't seen me maybe on the TECN network, the Exceptional Conservative Network, as often as I would like. But we're working on that. We're getting that schedule set up. So let me talk with you a little bit, because most of what I'm going to talk about today is going to deal with immigration. And there's a lot of news about that. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. But I also want to remember something that was recent news. I think a lot of people may recall not too long ago, actually the 4th of July weekend last week, earlier this week, I should say, there was Nike and Colin Kaepernick. And Nike and Colin Kaepernick decided that Betsy Ross was somehow a racist, and that the flag that Betsy Ross created for the United States, often rumored to be the first flag of the United States, was somehow racist. And they justified this by saying that it was done in the 1700s during the time that our nation had slavery. And that's true. America had slavery in the 1700s. Absolutely. Even into the 1800s. Well before then, into the 1400s, there was slavery in America. That's true. Does the American flag symbolize slavery? No, because there's been slavery around the world. And it doesn't symbolize oppression. It doesn't symbolize any kind of the negatives that are being placed upon it. I mean, let's remember, Betsy Ross, I'm sure Colin Kaepernick forgot about this when he was in school, but Betsy Ross, she was a Quaker. She was against slavery. She was an abolitionist, actively fighting against slavery. But he's somehow trying to connect that woman, a Quaker, someone against slavery, with slavery. He wants to connect America with slavery. And Nike somehow decided that this was all true, that they didn't bother to look at American history, to remember Betsy Ross, to remember what Quakers were, a religious order that were against slavery, to forget about who she was and what she had accomplished as a woman in the 1700s, where there was no right to vote, and women were often considered property. And to see that she was exemplified amongst her peers and amongst many of the men at the time of a revolution for our nation, and you want to detract from all that. So Colin Kaepernick, he's saying that this is all about oppression. He's fighting against the oppression that's occurred here in America, and that he's fighting for the people. Okay, that may be his statement. That's what he's talking about. But I want to put this in perspective in the best way that I possibly can. Colin Kaepernick, for anyone who's trying to say that America, oppression, that people who are people of color now in America in 2019, here's a reminder. That was August 9th, 1936. And in August 9th of 1936, there was the Olympics. And Jesse Owens won his 4th gold medal. Jesse Owens loved America. Jesse Owens represented all of America. And this was a time where it was before the Civil Rights Movement. It was after, of course, the Civil War and the 14th, 13th, 15th Amendments, where we saw that slaves were freed. So, yeah, it was not a good time to be a person of color in America. And Jesse Owens loved America. Frederick Douglass, going back to 1852, loved America, stood up for America, fought for America. You know what? When I think of Nike and I think of Colin Kaepernick, I then go back and I think of Jesse Owens. You know what? Colin Kaepernick has never faced the oppression that Jesse Owens faced. He never had to go through the adversity that Jesse Owens went through. In 1936, Colin Kaepernick and anyone alive today in 2019, we're talking about the millennials, they have no concept. I, born in 1968, have no concept of the kind of oppression and racism that Jesse Owens had to go through, that Frederick Douglass in 1852 had to go through. And to say that today there is so much oppression, so much horror. Let's think about this for a second. I mean, really, folks, let's talk about this. Colin Kaepernick, a multi-millionaire who doesn't do anything anymore. He doesn't play football. He was getting, $14 million to play a game. And he made his deals with Nike, giving him millions more. He's making as much as businesses make individually. Okay? And he's out there, he's saying that there's so much oppression that people of color are oppressed in America. Well, let me guess, because Jesse Owens didn't make millions. Frederick Douglass didn't make millions, even if you were to adjust the money from 1852 to today. No, these weren't rich people. They were working class. You know what? Today, we have Cory Booker, we have Kamala Harris. They're both senators. They're both people of color. Kamala Harris happens to be a woman, and they're running for president. This is after the fact that we had Barack Obama, who's black, was president for 8 years. He won re-election. We're so oppressed. We've had Herman Cain and we've had Dr. Ben Carson run for president. We have how many members of Congress that happen to be black or Hispanic or both, and women or women? How many? How many? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? In 1936, that was not even possible. And yet Colin Kaepernick and Nike want us to think that today you are oppressed, and that a flag that celebrates a nation that has given us the opportunity to have free speech and to grow and to make millions playing a game, and not even playing the game, just millions for being a person of interest in the nation. And you're going to tell me that's oppression? I'm sorry. He has no idea what he's talking about. He's out of his mind. He's an idiot. And that's my personal opinion. But that's not what I want to focus on today, because there's a lot of other things. But I do want to put that in perspective. When people want to talk about oppression, they want to talk about how bad America is. They want to talk about slavery. They have no idea what they're talking about. They're not paying attention to history, and there are definitely no way that they can make a comparison today to what we saw in 1852, to what we saw in 1936, and the fact that those individuals who were actually going through it, loved America more than Colin Kaepernick in 2019, where he has more advantages and more opportunities than they have ever dreamed of in their lifetimes, then, it just upsets me. So I did want to talk a little bit about that, since it is July 7th and we're only 3 days after the July 4th celebration. But I also want to talk about a couple of other things. So one of the things I want to talk about here, and I want to focus mostly on immigration today, but I do